Hey guys, in this interview, I'll be sharing with you an interview recording of a Hong Kong radio station DJ and a registered dietitian by the name of Harrison Lee. Now, some of you may have come across my previous videos in the past where I talked about how I stumbled across Harrison Lee's blog like 2 to 3 years ago, where I was scrambling around trying to find answers of how to reverse eczema. I came across his blog and I read his blog articles. I found them very useful and simple and easy to understand. And also, because of his blog, I feel that I've basically stumbled across the cure of how to reverse eczema. So, since then, I followed Harrison on Instagram, and Harrison recently shared that he had an interview with a Hong Kong radio station DJ. So I was really excited to hear his interview and also wanted to share this interview with you guys.
We're going to be talking about diet and the effects of it and sometimes the bad effects of it. And I've got a book in front of me called The Eczema Manual, and it's by my next guest, dietitian Harrison Lee. Good day, how are you?
Oh, very good. Very glad to be here.
Thanks for coming. It's really interesting because this is one of these things. I don't know if it's just a Hong Kong thing, but let's say people don't tend to jump up and down showing off when they've got skin complaints, do they?
Definitely. It's not so easy.
So let's just start at the very beginning, Harrison. What's your story?
Well, it all became since very long ago, actually. I'm currently 21, 22 years old, turning 22 this year. Yeah. And it came around 6 years old. And it all began when I had a little rash, a little itch on my arm, and I began to itch it a little bit. Yeah. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And my parents told me to go to the hospital and see a doctor, a general physician. Sure. And the first line of treatment, and which is also the only line of treatment, is steroid therapy. And I put on some creams, and the rashes went away in a few days. And I thought,
what do they call it? Is it the cream was
the steroid cream, the cortisone.
Cortisone.
Yeah. So I thought that would be the end of it. But a few days later, because I stopped the treatment and it came back immediately. Okay. So I thought there was something wrong, and there's something that isn't just enough. So I went into trying different types of treatments, different doctors, and nothing just seemed to work.
How did you get on with the Chinese medicine? I'm sure you went there.
Definitely. So in Chinese medicine, I went to a doctor in Shanghai, actually. Okay. Because I studied in Shanghai a little bit as well. And their herbal medicine, they said, you boil this juice, drink it every single day. It's very bitter. Do it for 3 months and see what happens when you come back. And nothing happened.
That's interesting. I mean, in general, the jury... the jury is out sometimes on Chinese medicine, but I think for some people it really works, and just for others it might not. Is it that simple?
Yeah, it really depends on the full picture, because I would like to see that steroids or Chinese medicine, they are just one of the many tools in the toolbox. In medicine, there are many different types of tools, including food-based medicine and Chinese medicine. So it really depends on how long the person has eczema and what are the causes of that person's eczema. Okay,
so we got to the bit where you were trying out various things. Let's carry on. It's interesting, this.
Yeah, and when I had the herbal juice, after 3 months, I thought that would be the end of it, because Chinese medicine probably doesn't work. So the doctor told me let's try a new one. I'll refer you to another herbalist. And I tried the treatment for 1 year, and it didn't work at all. So after 10 years of doing this, since the age of 6, I've thought, this is enough. I need to take control of my own life.
So all you remember from those years really is, because it's not the nicest. So what did you do?
So I went online, which is the internet, a wealth of resources. Looked it up on the research papers, the blog articles, and what people were saying on the forums. And because there's a lot of insights in there, people actually found some success. So I decided to follow something which is very simple but very effective, called nutrition. And I began eating very healthily. I like to use an analogy, right? It is our body is like a car, right? If the car is designed for diesel, then you put diesel in. But if you put it's for petrol, then you put in petrol.
That's good.
Our body is the same thing. Yeah. We are not used to eating so much junk food, so much added sugar, processed food. We eat that every single day. Whether it's affected by our friends or mainstream media or the food manufacturers, it doesn't matter. We know that we need to eat healthier, and it will reverse the disease.
I'm thinking that the best way for us to do anything like this, firstly, we get lectured all the time. Forget that. The best way for us to eat healthily I'm assuming, is to somehow make it so it's easy for us to do that. You don't have to think, oh, no sugar, no this, that, and the other. Is that right? We fool ourselves into eating healthy.
Right. So every day, for example, we hear the terms like organic food or gluten-free food. These are very easier to remember type of labels.
Yeah.
But is organic food really healthier? A lot of research has shown that the nutrition is actually pretty much the same. It's just a more expensive label. It makes you feel better psychologically.
Because it's about no chemicals, it's about not killing various living things, etc., etc. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be a bad idea, but then when you go and buy some of this so-called organic stuff, it's twice as expensive.
Exactly. Just because they don't put pesticides on it.
Exactly, which is weird.
Yeah. When they don't put pesticides on it, actually there are chances of higher microbial infections, which means it's likelier that the vegetables might be contaminated compared to inorganic food, actually.
You cannot win.
Yeah.
Basically. So you said, I found something really cool, nutrition. Now, with relevance to your eczema, what happened?
Right. So in 2013, that was the summer, I've been experimenting with different things, including a 3-day fast, which means I don't eat anything and just drink water for 3 days. That didn't change too much. So later I went on a diet, and this food regime was about eating things very healthily, which means 80% plant-based food, 20% meat-based food.
That sounds...
and also anti-inflammatory, which basically means no junk food, no sugar, no added sugar.
What gets inflamed?
What gets inflamed? Eczema, we classify it as a skin disease.
Gotcha.
But beneath it is an autoimmune disease.
Right.
So what's really getting inflamed is actually our system, the internal organs. And that goes to our intestines, that goes to our liver, and all of these different organs. But as a individual who is most concerned about how to remove the disease, we don't have to think about all those inside. All we need to know is just to eat healthy. And I have this easy acronym that I use all the time. Is SES, the SES trio. Stress less, exercise more, and sleep well. It's very, very simple. But most of us don't do it enough, especially for eczema sufferers.
All right, let's talk about the sleep thing, because that's very important. I'm thinking that at least 3 or 4 of the things you've mentioned up until now would cause bad sleep. Loads of sugar, the list goes on.
Yeah, that's actually true. A survey conducted just last year from one of the health organizations in eczema found that the average citizen in America would lose sleep in 16 days per month, around 16 days per month.
Crazy.
And you wake up in the middle of the night, you're just itching, and it affects how you sleep, how deep you sleep. And,
right. Yeah. Some more of the myths there. People often say that when you have some kind of irritation, skin thing, the more you get stressed out, the more it flares. Is it as simple as that?
It can be for some people. So I've seen cases where someone suddenly develops eczema at the age of 28.
Yeah.
And they've never had eczema in their whole life. Okay. And suddenly it just came out. And the most important thing here is eczema isn't really an overnight thing. It is an accumulated condition. So throughout the past few years, they've been working too hard. They've been feeding themselves unhealthy foods. And suddenly one day, the body can no longer take it and it bursts out. So that's where stress plays a huge role.
Does make sense. You can, thinking about the way you're describing this to me, you can kind of get your head around this. Oh, I get it. And that's very important. I'm sure, I haven't read your book, but I'm sure, is that your approach? So everything you say, you want people to say, I get this.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So actually this book, although it's called the Eczema Manual, because it's structured in a way where it's an instruction manual, we're not born with a manual to eat healthy. So this is exactly the step-by-step process. And the funny thing is, this is actually not my first edition. This is my 4th rewrite.
Fine.
Because the first rewrite was all scientific jargon and all that. And now every chapter is only 3 to 4 pages maximum. So every person can understand.
You can do this.
And actionable.
Because you don't want it to be a gimmick, do you? We're bombarded by diet books.
Definitely. There's paleo diet.
All of
there's
the above.
many, many different diets.
Yeah. So I was reading somewhere in your bio about slow process.
Right.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Mainstream medicine, which is the conventional medicine from the Western philosophy, is the steroid treatment, because that's provable in research. Not many things are provable, so that thing is this type of medicine can stop the eczema and remove the symptoms in a matter of days. This is under 7 days.
This is a quick fix.
Very quick fix.
Go on then.
And there is no quick fix to chronic diseases especially.
Yeah.
If you get a cut, you put on a Band-Aid, it goes away in a few days. That's an acute short-term condition. But for eczema, this is a very lifelong chronic condition which requires 60 days to months to years for people to withdraw from the condition.
Just at the moment, I mean, are we purely talking about eczema? What about when we get really inflated skin conditions such as psoriasis? Or is that a different topic?
Oh, that's actually a very good point. So this is something I've observed from personal observations and also other people who've suffered from the condition. When I had my eczema at its worst in the middle of high school, and I didn't just develop eczema, it began to spread to different places, and suddenly I developed eczema in different places I never thought about, and the patches looked very, very different, which resembled into what I now know is psoriasis.
Wow.
So the eczema can actually spread and extend to different related conditions, which all stem from the fact that we are autoimmune diseased.
Is this what you're saying? Systems, autoimmune, immune systems. Is stuff like this the body's way of, or the immune system's way of saying I'm in trouble?
Oh, definitely.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's a good enough a signal that we should start making change.
Okay, so once you discovered, quite by chance and because of good old internet and stuff like this, how did you rationalize this? How did you say, right, I must start doing this, this and this? Because you can't just go, well, that looks good, can you?
Yeah, that's actually true. So when I look at the internet, there are so many different diets and different opinions. Someone would tell you, go for the paleo diet. Actually, that didn't exist back then.
Sure. And
some would go for the gluten-free diet, and some would be the low-carbohydrate diet. You just don't know what to follow. But
you've just summed up all the gizmos and all the stuff here, because you said the paleo diet didn't exist then, and the nature of the paleo diet is from Paleolithic. But exactly. You've summed all the shtick up there. Anyway, carry on.
Very, very funny.
Yeah. You tell me about more of the research here.
Yeah. So in medical research, because it requires a high standard and everything is very rigid, let's say I can find a piece of research that shows if you sleep enough, you don't stress that much.
Okay.
If you don't stress that much, you have less symptoms. But you cannot find a single piece of research that tells you sleep well, stress less, and eat properly. If you do all of that, you can reverse eczema. That's very hard to control.
So that's that simple.
Yeah, but there's no way to show that in a publication because we're humans, and humans are not controllable. We're not lab rats, right? So after looking at so many different diets, I kind of you feel this intuitive sense that you can connect the dots.
Okay.
You just know that behind all these diets, they're talking about the same thing. So. You just need to eat more plant-based food, eat less junk food. Every diet is the same.
So how long before you had all this information in your head, you're sort of seeing that there could be a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's all going around your head like mad. Then how did you go, okay, let's make a list and logicalize it? Right.
So when I look at so many different diets, behind there's always a common grounding principle, and that is anti-inflammation. For example, sugar is inflammatory. Too much added sugar is not good. Eating too much red meat, whether it's correlated with cancer or whatever, we also know that too much will be not so healthy for us. So I began to develop a list of principles, and this includes low sugar, low junk food, low chemicals.
And this is easy to do, right? Because to me, that's the crucial thing. I mean, I'm not the expert, you are, but if it's easy for us to do, we're more likely to do it.
That's a good point. It's not easy to do it.
Okay.
It's easy to understand, but not easy to apply because the thing I always say is that there is not a lack of solution. The technical solution is there for the take. However, what we lack is guidance and commitment and discipline. It is very hard to stick to a diet that basically restricts you to desserts, pizzas, and everything that sounds delicious and tastes delicious, but we just can't do it.
Well, let's do the case study here. How did you do it?
Fortunately, I was having a summer vacation with my aunt in Chongqing in mainland China, and at that time, I was very I saw all of this junk food in the supermarket, and there's a lot of chips and all that. There's just no way I could eat those things if I were talking about getting rid of my eczema.
All right.
And when you suffer from the condition for so long, any solution that could potentially work, you'll be desperate enough to try it.
And you go and see all that stuff in the supermarket in China, and then you start freaking out, and then you get more eczema.
So I said, I'm not going to go buy all of those things.
Yeah.
And I decided to boil vegetables, a very, very clean diet for 3 months straight.
Okay.
And miraculously, in 3 months' time, I thought it would take even longer, but in 3 months' time, all of my rashes completely stopped and disappeared and healed up.
Is that partly because you felt more focused as well, inside?
I feel so.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to gain that sense of clarity because you've tried so many different things. How would you know the next thing would work?
That makes a lot of sense. Harrison Lee's book is called The Eczema Manual, the fourth writing, right?
Right.
The missing compendium in diagnosing, treating, and reversing eczema. How is your work going to progress from here? Because obviously fixing yourself is number one, and you've done that.
So this book, although it was published last year, the idea actually came from 5 years ago in 2013. That's when I eliminated the disease, and I thought to myself, if I could do it, so can anyone else do it as well.
Are you prone for it to come back, do you think, deep down?
Definitely.
Yeah?
I believe that most people with eczema will be eczema prone for a long time.
Is there a sort of a genetic thing?
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you have one parent with eczema, you have a 20% chance of developing it. But if both of the parents have eczema, there will be a 50% chance to pass on the genes. But the key thing is we know something called epigenetics, which means you can turn off the bad genes and turn on the good genes. In other words, you don't have to have eczema.
With good food?
With good food and good sleep and low stress, for example.
What have you discovered about the world of diet along the way? I mean, what kind of things? Just interesting stuff.
Right. Interesting things, for example, when you, let's say a can of Coke, and the sugar, they will never label it as added sugar. We would like to use high fructose corn syrup, for example. And we now know that it is kind of not healthy. It's processed sugar. But the food industry is very interesting to find new ways to label the food. For example, organic distilled fruit sugar, which is essentially the same thing. But it sounds very healthy. You never know what it really is.
That makes a lot of sense. What foods, and again, I want you to speak purely from your personal opinion, what foods would you like to say people should eat more? I mean, not should, but you'd like to suggest they eat more of?
Right. The food, I would say fish is the number one thing. Omega-3, we always hear that from advertisements, from milk formulas, and so on. The thing is, every single day we are eating in a diet where we lack a lot of omega-3 and we have way too much omega-6, which comes from, omega-6 comes from a lot of vegetable oils, everything we fry, everything we bake, we cook, and we use a lot of oil.
Right.
But we don't have the good types of oils to make this balance. And that comes a lot primarily from seafood.
Oils, then? Certain types of oils?
Yeah, specific types of oils.
Specific types of oils are good. And what about certain kinds of foods that people are calling superfoods and stuff like this? Certain grains and pulses. Is that just jargon, or do you recommend that kind of stuff?
Superfood, it will really depend on the type of food the supposed label is being attached to. For example, we can call avocados a superfood. We can call lemons superfood, but that doesn't really mean anything. It means what is important is what are you eating everything else. It is the whole picture that matters.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Where can our listeners find more about you online?
Oh, yeah. So, because I started this book last year, and in the last 5 years, I thought if I could help more people, that would be the best of it. But I thought I wanted to have a time-bound mission, and that is to help 1 million people reverse eczema before 2026, which is when I turn 30 years old.
Tangible results.
Something tangible and time-bound.
He's actually doing a workshop next month. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so one of my first ideas to kickstart this mission is to run a public, free-of-charge workshop on eczema elimination workshop.
Yeah.
It is on September 22nd, Saturday, 4 to 6 p.m., and I'll cover exactly in 2 hours how to remove eczema step by step for anyone with eczema.
Give us a website if you have one.
Yeah, I do actually. So this website, this workshop will be attached in the comment section in the link as somewhere on cureeczemaslowly.com without the space between the three words.
Easy to find.
Yeah, cureeczemaslowly.com.
Thanks again. Just read me the front cover of your book again. Title, subtitle.
Sure. The book is called The Eczema Manual, The Missing Compendium in Diagnosing, Treating, and Reversing Eczema.
Fascinating. Harrison Lee, thanks very much for coming.
Welcome.
So Harrison has also written a book about how to cure eczema slowly. Now, I would encourage you to go to his website, read his articles, buy his book, because personally I feel his message is always about diet. And I strongly believe the cure to how we can reverse eczema is through the diet. Now, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, like, or just share this video with anybody that you know who's experiencing autoimmune skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis.